Hello guys, hope you all are doing well. So in today's session, let's talk about Global Protect VPN Lab. So we'll configure VPN Lab step by step. So first, let's see about topology. This is basically our topology. So let me talk a little bit about how it is set up. So it consists of two firewalls. This is firewall 1 and this is firewall 2. Firewall 1 we have configured for both portal and gateway, and firewall 2 here we have configured only for gateway. This is considered as a site 1 and this is as a site 2. Then here we have one test PC. That test PC will initiate connection with the portal that is configured on site 1, and then it depend on our configuration it will connect to gateway 1 or gateway 2. Then on the LAN side, we have one router configured that will be used for initiating traffic. Similarly, on site 2, we have one router configured that we'll use for testing. So this is basically a topology that we will be using to configure this Global Protect lab. Now let's start with configuring this setup. So initially, we need to configure interfaces on the firewall. So basically, in this case, as you can see from the lab, that this is the egress interface we'll be using for WAN, and this will be internal interface that is used on LAN side. So I think interfaces are already configured here. So basically, this is our external interface goes to ISP. It's a L3 type. Virtual router we have defined, and security zone IP address has been given here. Nothing else. Similarly, for internal interface, we have made it layer 3, and IP address has been given here. Zone, it's in a separate inside zone. Management profile I have configured here called management, on which we have enabled ping, telnet, SSH and HTTP. Right. So once this both the interfaces have been configured, we need to create one tunnel interface. In this case, I have created one tunnel interface called 999. You can give any name, and then it has been assigned to same virtual router, and security zone we have given it as inside. Then we have allocated one IP address range for this tunnel interface, and ultimately from this IP address range client IP would be given when the client connects to this configuration. Right. So once this has been done, we need to configure the certificate profile first. So for that, we will come to this certificate management, and from here we need to start configuring this certificate. So basically, before doing configuration for certificates, let's talk a little bit about the certificates here. So basically, in this case, we will be using self-signed certificates here on Palo Alto. Self-signed cert we will create, right? So in a sense, we will be creating root CA on the firewall, and once this root CA has been created, if required, we will create intermediate CA, and then ultimately we will create server certificate. Right. So in our case, we will not do this intermediate CA. We will configure root CA, and this server certificate would be signed by this root CA. So basically in this case the role of the root CA is to sign certificate, right? And secondly, this server certificate here is nothing but a certificate we will generate for specific firewall, and this server certificate that we'll generate for the firewall would be joined by this would be signed by this root CA. So all this, like this root CA, this server certificate, we will all configure this on Palo Alto firewall itself. So that's why we'll call it as a self-signed root CA. So for this, we will use our like site one firewall to act as certificate authority. That is, we say is as a root CA. So that same firewall would be used to create server certificate, sign them, and everything. Right. Now let's start with configuring this certificate. Right. So for that, we'll come to devices, certificate management, and certificate. So once we come here, we'll name the certificate name. It can be any name. I will just name it as root CA. Common name is basically FQDN to be appear on certificate, as it's internal our lab environment. We will give here IP only. So in this case, our egress interface IP here, as you can see, it's 1.1.1.2. So that is the reason we are mentioning here as 1.1.1.2. Then we need to check this checkbox mentioning its certificate authority, and algorithm will keep it as RSA. Digest would be same SHA-256. Expiration days we can give it as 240 dates. Depending on if you want to mention any attributes, we can mention attributes here. I will leave them blank as of now. So as you can see that this root CA has been configured. So our first step is done, that is configuring root CA. Now we will generate one certificate for our firewall 1. We'll name this site 1 firewall. Common name for that one would be same as we are using the same firewall for the gateway and portal, and then signed by, we'll say root CA. This we will keep same, as it will complain saying that it cannot be same as root CA. We need to add one certificate attribute here so that it would be a little bit different. So as you can see that the certificate has been generated and key pair is also there. So we can see these two certificates we require here. One is root CA, and this root CA signed this certificate for firewall 1. So for this firewall, it is acting as portal and gateway. We used both these certificates. Right. Now, next thing that we need to do is we need to map these certificates for portal and gateway. So in this case, this server certificate that we have created here, we will use them for both portal and gateway. So to do that, we need to create one certificate profile. The certificate profile is nothing but actually a profile that we create in which we add all our root CAs. So in this case, let's create one profile, and here we'll name it as TLS uh, profile 1. Username field will keep it none. If in our future labs we'll see if we want to do authentication completely based on certificate, then we need to select here username field as subject or subject alternative name, right? Domain name will keep it blank, and on CA certificates now we'll map our root CA here, right? So this part is done. So once this certificate profile has been created, basically on when we go to firewall, we need to map this certificate profile. So another thing that we need to create is SSLTLS profile. So this TLS profile is basically used to map under portal and gateway configuration. So here we will name it as SSLTLS1, and the certificate that we will be using here is the certificate server certificate that we generated for firewall, which is site 1 firewall. Minimum version it is that we will support is starting from 1.0 up to TLS max version it will support. So these are all basic certificate configuration that we need to do for VPN. So first we created this root CA, then we used this root CA and created this server certificate which is signed by this root CA. Then we created one TLS profile in which we mapped this root CA. Next we created this TLS profile, and under this TLS profile we mapped that server certificate used by firewall. Right. So next we will do is we will start with configuring portal. So in this case, when we come to the Global Protect tab, portal, we need to start with portal configuration. So in this case, let's name is GP portal, right? Can be anything. In this case, we'll use our external interface. Address type would be IPv4, and they'll will mention here. This appearances page and all will keep it normal. Now here we will come and map our SSL TLS profile that we have created earlier, that is SSL TLS1, right? Then for client authentication, in this case we'll be using local client authentication, and for that we'll use authentication profile as local. Rest all the fields will keep it default, right? And then when we come to agent config, we need to define create some profile here. So let's say we'll say here profile 1 client certificate. We'll not be using any client certificate here, and save user credentials will keep it yes. So config selection criteria will keep it any, no device check, no custom checks, right? So under external gateway, now we will add here gateway. Uh, we'll give it name site1 fw1, and IP address we'll mention here as 1.1.1.2, right? And then source region that we will mention here as any, and the priority would be highest. Secondly, you will see this tab wherein it mentions that the user can manually select the gateway. We'll select this. Yes, because in this case that we need to sometimes require to change the manual configuration. So we will use this option. So we'll say yes over here. Right. So next comes the app configuration. So in this lab, let's do on demand first, wherein the user will initiate connection to gateway. So and then allow user to disable. Let's allow this one. Single sign on. Let's keep yes. So rest all configuration will keep it default. So let's say yes. Next piece of configuration that we need to do is mapping the root certificate. So the trusted root certificate that we have created here will map them. And once the client connects to portal, this option pushes the certificate to client. So that is all the configuration that we need to do here. One more thing that we need to do here is under this client authentication, this local authentication profile has been mapped. So we need to actually create authentication profile also here. So here we have created one authentication profile called local. In this we have used the database called local database, right? And rest all fields we have kept it blank. Under advanced, we have allowed least mention all users, uh, they can use allowed to connect. Okay, so in terms of portal, let's take a look again. So basically, first on the general tab, we mention name, interfaces, IP address type, and IP address. Then under authentication, we have mapped our TLS profile. Client authentication, we are making it local. Certificate profile, we are doing none. Right. Then under agent configuration, we have given profile name, no client certificate. Then under external gateway, we are using this address. Right. Then under app, we are doing on demand manual initiated connection. Right. And under trusted root CA, we are mapping this trusted root certificate here. So basically, this is all the configuration that we need to do for Global Protect portal. In next lecture, we'll do configuration for Global Protect gateway. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.